Hey guys, this is Toytony, and this week my buddy DJ is going to join us, and we're going to do a review of the Soul of Chogokin Dragonzord, and we're going to compare it to the Legacy Dragonzord, and we're going to look and see which one we think is the best. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hey, what is up, people? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Soul of Chogokin Dragonzord. It's actually my first Soul of Chogokin figure that I've ever picked up. There's been a lot of Soul of Chogokin figures I've been wanting to get, haven't done it because they're really expensive. I've been selling a lot of things in order to get the Soul of Chogokin Power Ranger set, so we're going to go from there. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because there's already a ton of reviews out there for this guy. Some of them are like really bad negative and some of them are like really good positive. So I want to do more of a comparison video, like pointing out, because right here are your two main Dragonzords on the market for, you know, collectors, and which one is the be-all end-all of Dragonzords. That's what I want to kind of look at here. I will mention the Soul of Chogokin Megazord itself, which I don't currently have, but is coming. But I'm going to mostly go just on the merits of the Dragonzords themselves. I have the Legacy Megazord here in the middle just to sort of show it off and show some comparison scale here. So as for the question, which is the be-all end-all, I'll be honest, I feel like neither of these is the be-all end-all Dragonzord. They're both awesome, but both of them, like this one has some things on it that it does better than this one, but this one has some things on it that it does better than this one. So that's kind of why I want to do the comparison, sort of go through some of that. So let's get our diffusion out of the way here. Okay, so let's move these here and just take a quick look at the boxes themselves. So as you can see, both of these have kind of done the same thing, as they both have been made to look like they're vintage boxes, whereas this one's made to look a little bit like the original Green Ranger / Dragonzord box set that we got here in America. This is made to look exactly like the Japanese Zyuranger Dragon Caesar original box, but done with the new product on it. Now the interesting thing here, now the Legacy didn't originally have gold foil lettering, but they did switch to that. But the Dragonzord does not have anything except for where it says Legacy, whereas here it's all gold foil. But if you see here, this is also dual licensed, so you have the actual Japanese Dragon Caesar with the Zyuranger logo down here, but then you also have Dragonzord with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers logo right there. They're both beautiful boxes. They're both about the same size. The Dragon Caesar is a little bit wider, but a little bit shorter, and this one's a little bit taller and a little bit narrower. This one has a styrofoam inside. It does feel a lot more sturdy, a little more heavy duty of a box. So, you know, they're both about the same. So let's pull these out of the way. So let's move on to the main events, and we're going to look at these side by side here. So as you can see, the Soul of Chogokin one is a little bit shorter. Weight wise though, they really feel about the same. I don't have a scale, so I can't tell you which one's heavier, which one's not. But just looking at them from the front, I see a lot of people who have given him negatives have said that they don't like that this face here. They say that that face is too narrow and it's not show accurate, and this is much more wider like it should be and is much more show accurate. Now I hate to be that guy, but I've compared this to the actual mecha specs for Dragon Caesar. They have that image that I think you can get them on Ranger Board that shows front, side, and back, and gives them the specs in Japanese. And this from the front is much more accurate overall to the actual Dragonzord suit from the show. I will say the caveat to that is actually the chest piece here. Neither of these chest pieces are the right scale and proportions to the show, but I feel like this one here is a lot closer. Plus the way this hangs down here is a lot closer to what it was in the show. Whereas here, the overall proportions everywhere else are much, much more show accurate. The width of the knees, the size of the feet, the width of the legs, the size of the black spots here, the overall detailing, especially when you look here, like where this Dragonzord here clips together, they have this piece hanging here and an extra hole here, whereas here they used the clips and hid them here in the black detailing that's supposed to be there on the sides. So overall, if you're looking at it just from the front, I gotta give it to the Soul of Chogokin as far as going show accurate. Now overall, paint wise, this is a big deal because this is where it's going to be really subjective for a lot of people. I am a sucker for chrome. Anybody knows me knows I'm a sucker for chrome. So this just looks much more gorgeous to me. I mean, I'm all about this. But when you're looking at show accurate colors, this one head to toe is the more show accurate colors, with the exception of the green. The green on this one, even though it's much more metallic than what was in the show, is a much more accurate shade of green than what you have right here. As far as other features, both of them have the interchangeable hands. That's pretty much the same on both of them. They both have just the relaxed hands, and they both have the straight fingered hands like the original toy. Neither of them thought to do the little missile launchers, which is kind of a shame. They have the same Poseability as far as being on a ball joint and plus the transformation joints. I feel like the hands on this one are much more proportionate and much more accurate to the show than these ones are, but they're both essentially the same. And I kind of feel like the Soul of Chogokin took the idea from this Dragonzord here, because you can unplug this and he's got little spinning joints back here that don't give a whole lot of range unless you move them out like really far here, and gives him a little bit more articulation there. And this Dragonzord has the same thing. Now, I feel both of them kind of missed it by not having like a little ball joint in here on this part, so you can wiggle the arm from here around, because that's how it was in the show. But what this one has that this one doesn't is he's got a little spinning arm right there, so you can actually rotate his arm as well as his fists here. The other thing too here, the way his teeth line up here and the way his mouth opens and closes is much more accurate to the individual Dragonzord in the show as opposed to this one. Now, I do feel like when he was combined as basically the Megazord's hat, that's closed up all the way as opposed to just leaving the teeth here. But again, a lot more accurate there. The other thing too is you can open up his mouth and there's no Megazord head in there, whereas this one, you open up his mouth and there's a Megazord head in there, and his eyes start to drop out. Now the eyes have been a point of contention on some people for these guys, because here the eyes are much more noticeable. They're very clear and red. Here, I mean, they're more noticeable than my camera is showing, but they're very hard to see. I kind of feel like in some scenes that's a little bit more accurate, but I got to give it to this one here because of the spring-loaded eye gimmick that moves those eyes into place when you close his mouth all the way, so you can see his eyes a lot better. Again, that's something that they could have done on this one. I feel it's a missed opportunity because it is hard to see his eyes, especially with all the shine around there. Take a look here. You can see they chromed his toes on this one. So again, I feel like this part here, I feel it's the more accurate shape, but the way it sits here is not very accurate. I feel like this one sits a lot better, and the overall shape of this section here is a little bit better here. And that's because on the show, his waist was a rounded piece, whereas on both of these guys, it's a little bit more squared off in order to function for the way it transforms. So this is one of those where it's a little bit more subjective because it's a functionality thing. When it comes to Poseability, the arms are nearly identical. This one just has a little bit more to it, but the legs On this one, you have a little bit of in and out, a little bit of rotation too, using pretty much the same joint. And then you've got a full range of nice tight knees, and you've got a full ball joint and a little bit of a swivel, so you can get a really nice range of poseability there. Whereas on this one, you basically just have the one click and a couple clicks this way, and of course those clicks are there to sort of accommodate the combiner, the Zord mix and match gimmick that was incorporated into these guys. Another thing too, if you'll see this, you pick this guy up, he just flops around. Pick this guy up, he is solid. So that's really good, really good. So now let's go for a side profile. Get him back into the same pose here. So side profile, this is another one where one does one better in some cases and the other one does one better in other cases. So right away, this one has a pivoting joint right here, so you can get him in the hunched over pose like he's supposed to be in. Whereas on this one, you can sort of bend his legs and kind of make it like he's in the hunched over pose, but it's not quite the same. That being said, I feel like these legs here are the right size overall, but right here on the hips, the way these flare out as they go up, that's a little bit more show accurate. So it's kind of neither of them, like this should have been about this size, but this one should have flared up a little bit more like this one does. So there's kind of a mixed bag there. Again, colors, that's a different story altogether. You've got the same painted detail. You've got the Zord builder parts here, which I've never really been a fan of. I know that was a turnoff for a lot of people. Here he uses a very similar type of joint to combine, but they tuck away, so they're not so overly obvious. The tails. So the way this one hangs and its overall proportions is definitely a lot more show accurate. I feel this one's a lot more imposing though, and definitely pulls one thing off better, which is these little rims right here. Now these rims right here are meant for when it's collapsed in to be more show accurate, because these inner pieces were basically the fabric part on the suit that was between the big, whatever you want to call, knobs of the tail here. Whereas here, they didn't sculpt those on there, so when it's collapsed, it's not as show accurate. Again, proportion wise, is a lot more accurate on this one, even though again this part's supposed to be rounded and this is supposed to come down a little bit more. And then the tips of the tails here, definitely got to give it to this one. Now neither of them got all of the paint to details on here that they should. Now this paint I added myself, but if you look on the show, the way this looks here is very different. It's got a much darker color. The raised parts have a different color than the rest of the tail because these are also part of the drill. So that's kind of a mixed thing there. Now I will say here, the way this back comes up a lot more, I feel that's a little bit more show accurate because the way the suit was, you know, you had like a little fabric part here and then the back of the Dragonzord came up here and up to here. So side profile, with the exception of the lower legs, I really feel like, and the lower legs and the tail, I really feel like this guy's a little bit more show accurate than this guy, with the exception of the head area and the way he actually hunches. Now, back profile, again, the way the tail looks on this guy, just from the back, looks a little bit more show accurate, even though it's a lot larger than it should be. A little bit more imposing, so that's going to be probably a matter of taste. I do really like the silver on this one. I do like it's a lot easier to hold a pose. And you see that one starts to drag a little bit. This one is very good, very strong ball joints, at least for now. See how long those last. I've seen a lot of reviewers, whenever they mess with this, it pops off right here. Mine does not do that. I've had no problems whatsoever with that. Again though, when we get them up here to the back, this one here is a little bit more show accurate. this is more like the original toy was, but in the show, these little rings were much smaller and they came up to about halfway on his back. So again, this one does a little bit more better than this one on some cases. This one's got a little bit more on it than this one. So again, that's kind of going to be a mixed bag. Now, one thing though that they definitely got right here, this has the right sculpting, but this black paint here on the back of the heels, that's actually show accurate, and that's missing from the Solo Chokokin one. So there is that. Now, the other gripe that I see on a lot of people is actually the scale. As you can see, this one is a little bit smaller. Of course, part of that is he's hunched over. Straighten him completely up here. Get him all vintage toy stance here. We'll do the same thing here. And totally knock his tail off, because when you stand him straight up, he kind of leans back. So it's kind of, yeah, you kind of only have two options there. So this one is bigger. As you saw when I had him in here earlier, he's a little bit closer to the height of his Megazord, and now he's dead because I kill him, because I kill all my toys. But not quite the same height as the Megazord, and this one's a lot smaller, and as a result, he's also quite a bit smaller than his Megazord. Now, I've seen a lot of people really upset about that. They feel like the Dragonzord should be the same size as the Megazord. I'm going to say right off the bat that I think that's a lot more subjective, because these were guys in suits in the show. So when the Dragonzord was side by side with the Megazord, they were the same height. But when the Dragonzord was side by side with just the Tyrannosaurus Rex Zord, they were also the same height, and that's not actually physically possible to have the Dragonzord and the Tyrannosaurus Rex be the same height and then still have the Megazord be the same height. So that's kind of a subjective thing. If you prefer a bigger Dragonzord, then that's going to be, your thing there. I really love both of these figures. I think both of them are really good. So again, this one has things that are more accurate and better than this one, but this one also has things that are more accurate and better than this one. So it's really going to be a matter of personal taste and personal choice. Again, I absolutely am a sucker for chrome. It's one of my favorite things in toys. I like a nice, really nice metallic shiny paint job. So for me, this one is definitely my better one, but this one was also really expensive, and that one you can get for relatively decent price. You're going to get him for under $100. I've seen him between 60 and 80 bucks. So there's that. If you're looking for just a good Dragonzord on your shelf, this is definitely perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with this. It's an amazing figure. It was proof that Bandai America could actually do good Power Ranger stuff. This one is just more pristine looking. It's more like a high-end collectible, but again, neither of these are the be-all end-all Dragonzords, which is a shame, because this goes with a Megazord that's pretty much the be-all end-all Megazord. So it's just going to be one of those things of personal taste. For me personally, this one's the winner, but by a very, very narrow margin, and that's just because I'm a sucker for chrome. So I'll leave that up to y'all. Whichever one you think is yours, go out and get it. They're both great. Whenever I get the actual Solo Chokokin Megazord in, we'll revisit this guy. We'll do his transformations, because there's some really neat stuff in here. I love how this fully transforms into his full staff, and yet they still give him a more show accurate staff as well. So kudos to them. Anyway, until next time.
Well, that was our video for this week, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, remember, you're never too old to love toys. This is Toytony, and we'll talk to you soon.